The enlightened life is a journey of thresholds. You see, after you've woken up, your covenant with God now forever includes the commitment to live a life of increasing wonder, deeper love, and only truth. And you give your life to pioneering the frontier of human becoming. And so you're always in spiritual growth. And so you're often meeting and transcending thresholds as you move through your dance with life. It doesn't matter if they're huge quantum leaps or if they're tiny little shifts in your consciousness. The energetics of threshold are always the same. There are always veiled obstructions, mindset glitches, limiting beliefs, and natural counterforce that cause a tension that make you resist that threshold. And that tension can cause terrible agony and stagnation that lasts years if we don't deal with it. And then when you do cross the threshold, the new life on the other side can have you feeling disoriented, like you're in somebody else's mind or body, or you don't belong in the universe. You can feel strangely compartmentalized and out of touch with yourself. It can have you misplace or overextend your gifts, or preaching to the wrong mission field, or missing all of the abundance that God has placed right in front of you to harvest. But when you get the energetics involved here, and you know the mechanics of spiritual law, and you understand how to receive grace, then all of these things dissolve. The obstructions and glitches dissolve easily, and the resistance to the threshold fades. You find you can lean in more easily, and the courage and momentum that is required for you to cross that threshold is easily invoked. The heart's passion is easily invoked, and the new life on the other side can be quickly and gracefully embodied. More beauty, more peace, more marvel, more abundance, and a vibrancy and vitality that cannot be matched. My job is to train you in the framework of perception and vibration for crossing those thresholds, not just the one in front of you right now, but all thresholds to come. And this framework is called the sovereign way. It's easy to learn, but it does demand expansion, and it stays with you for life. The key to every gate at every threshold. So imagine how happy I was when I came across this beautiful bit of writing by my favorite priest and mystic, John O Donahue. This is Thresholds from his work To Bless the Space Between Us. Sink in and get comfortable and really receive these words by John O Donahue now. Within the grip of winter, it is almost impossible to imagine the spring. The grey, perished landscape is shorn of colour. Only bleakness meets the eye, and everything seems severe and edged. Winter is the oldest season. It has some quality of the absolute. Yet, beneath the surface of winter, the miracle of spring is already in preparation. The cold is relenting, and the seeds are wakening up. Colors are beginning to imagine how they will return. And then imperceptibly, somewhere, one bud opens and the symphony of renewal is no longer reversible. From the black heart of winter, the miraculous, breathing plenitude of color emerges. The beauty of nature insists on taking its time. Everything is prepared. Nothing is rushed. The rhythm of emergence is a gradual, slow beat, always inching its way forward. Change remains faithful to itself until the new unfolds in full confidence of true arrival. Because nothing is abrupt, so the beginning of spring nearly always catches us unawares. It is there before we see it, and then we can look nowhere without seeing it. Change arrives in nature when time has ripened. There are no jagged transitions or crude discontinuities. This accounts for the sureness with which one season succeeds another. It is as though they were moving forward in a rhythm set from within a continuum. To change is one of the great dreams of the heart. To change the limitations, the sameness, the banality, or the pain. So often we look back on patterns of behavior, the kind of decisions we make repeatedly and that have failed to serve us well, and we aim for a new and more successful path, a way of living. But change is difficult for us. And so often we opt to continue the old pattern rather than risking the danger of difference. We're always surprised to find that change seems to arrive out of nowhere. We find ourselves crossing some new threshold that we had never anticipated, like spring secretly at work within the heart of winter. Below the surface of our lives, huge changes are in fermentation. We never suspect a thing. And then, when the grip of some long enduring winter mentality begins to loosen, we find ourselves vulnerable to a flourish of possibility, and we're suddenly negotiating the challenge of a threshold. At any time, you can ask yourself, at which threshold am I now standing? At this time of my life, what am I leaving? Where am I about to enter? What is preventing me from crossing my next threshold? What gift would enable me to do it? A threshold is not a simple boundary. It is a frontier that divides two different territories, rhythms, and atmospheres. Indeed, it is a lovely testimony to the fullness and integrity of an experience or a stage of life that it intensifies toward the end into a real frontier that cannot be crossed without the heart being passionately engaged and woken up. At this threshold, a great complexity of emotions come alive: confusion, fear, excitement, sadness, hope. And this is one of the reasons such vital crossings used to always be clothed in ritual. It is wise in your own life to be able to recognize and acknowledge the key thresholds, to take your time and to feel all the varieties of presence that accrue there at the threshold, to listen inward with complete attention until you hear the inner voice calling you forward. The time has come. To acknowledge and cross a new threshold is always a challenge. It does demand courage and also a sense of trust in whatever is emerging. This becomes essential when a threshold opens suddenly in front of you, one for which you had no preparation, maybe illness or suffering or loss. Because we're so engaged with the world, we usually forget how fragile life can be and how vulnerable we always are. It takes only a couple of seconds for a life to change irreversibly, and suddenly you stand on completely strange ground, and the new course of life has to be embraced. Especially at such times, we desperately need blessing and protection. You look back on the life that you've lived up until a few hours ago, and suddenly it seems so far away. Think for a moment how across the world, someone's life right now has just changed irrevocably, permanently, and not necessarily for the better. And everything that was once so steady, so reliable, must now find a new way of unfolding. Though we know one another's names and we recognize one another's faces, we never know what destiny shapes each life. The script of individual destiny is secret. It's hidden behind and beneath the sequence of happenings that are continually unfolding for us. Each life is a mystery that never is finally able to be available to the mind's light or questions. That we are indeed even here is a huge affirmation. Somehow life needed us. Somehow life wanted us to be. To sense and trust this primeval acceptance will open a vast spring of trust within the heart. And it will free us into a natural courage that casts out fear and opens up our lives to become voyages of discovery, creativity, and compassion. No threshold need be a threat, but rather an invitation and a promise. Whatever comes, the great sacrament of life will remain faithful to you, blessing you always with visible signs of invisible grace. We merely need to trust. Those words are Thresholds by John O Donahue from To Bless the Space Between Us. Have a blessed weekend, and let's cross the threshold of next week with grace.